It's my pleasure to introduce you to our guest of today. Today we will be with Marzia. She is an author and design leader. She is a business transformation consultant, design leader, coach, speaker, and she has a PhD in design for organizational change. She shares her knowledge in her newsletter, Design Mavericks. But she doesn't share her knowledge only there. She's also the author of a graphic novel published by Biz Publisher, depicting the stories of leaders driving change in organizations through design. Before all of that, Marzia worked as a managing director at LiveWorks Studio, the first service design agency in history. And in her career, Marzia worked as design director, lead service designer, innovation consultant, head of innovation and design, innovation analyst in various companies all over Europe. So it's my pleasure to welcome on the stage for you, Marzia. Hey, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Oh, that was super nice, Daniela. Thank you. So you asked for 3 insights. And so I started thinking, okay, what is the very first insight that I want to share with this crowd? And the first thing that came to mind was 15 to 20% of the global population is neurodivergent. And this is an estimate. There are not real data apart from Northwestern Medicine. I found this kind of paper published by them. And on its own, actually, this doesn't really tell you much. It's not really an insight, is it? It's not very actionable. It's more just raw data. And so I thought, okay, then maybe we got to start from scratch to really find an insight behind it. Fine. So let's imagine this is data point number 1. 15 to 20% of the global population is neurodivergent. If we try to go beyond the data, what that means, these are basically people, in majority with dyslexia, but also ADHD, and some of them are in the spectrum of autism. Okay, these are the 3 most common within that 15 to 20%. If you put that in the context of business, though, 25% of CEOs are dyslexic. That means it's 1 in 4. And this is another estimate because, as you can imagine, not many CEOs want you to know that they are dyslexic. There is still a bit of a stigma around it. There are other data out there in the world that say that 45% of the C-suites, executives, and 55% of business owners self-identify as neurodivergent. This is like 1 out of 2, right? And then if you look at the design population, no data is basically available. I've been digging for a while. If anyone is like running research on this topic, I would love to hear it. But what do we know is that at least the Royal College of Arts have reported to the UK Parliament that 29% of their students identified as dyslexic, which I thought was quite high. So maybe the insight is that many of the people we deal with, whether it's colleagues, customers, clients, or stakeholders, employees, are neurodivergent. And what that means is that a lot of these people seriously struggle with thick, lengthy text. And that's an insight, because that's something you can do something with. Despite knowing that, we very often end up entering meetings. I'm guilty myself. These are my slides from 10 years ago. You get into meetings with slides that look like this, like heavy text or heavy reports, lots of words, some quotes. And we tend to share knowledge with articles and artifacts that really look like this. And I'm also guilty of this because I have a PhD, so I've been writing some of these types of artifacts. And what that produces is this. So we have a lot of people, myself included at one point, you end up having a pile of books or things that you really would love to read, that you never find the time to do it or never find the focus to do it. And that's a shame because it's like it's a kind of a barrier to access new knowledge and start sharing and collaborating. So that's the reason why I publish a book that looks like this. This is actually the book. And I decided to use a graphic novel format to try and be way more inclusive, to try and reach those people that are usually not very well served, that would love to read about story design, stories of organizational change, but because of the way the brain works, current knowledge out there is not necessarily formatted in the way that they can enjoy it. And so I ran this little experiment, and it was beautiful. I picked like 9 real design leaders, 9 real stories, real organizations from all over the world. So you have IBM in the States, you have Xero in Australia, you have Vodafone in the UK. And I pick some of these leaders and talk to them and trying to really understand what is their story, how did they manage to achieve impact and change in their organization by design, how did they do it, what were the struggles. And so I try to tell these stories as truthfully as possible, not just depicting what work and best practices, but really trying to show the real human behind the stories, the real human behind the leader, and especially those moments of struggle, those moments where someone said, you know what, I'm gonna quit. This is not for me. I can make this happen here. And I'm loving the feedback that is coming from people. Every single person that wrote something about the book, and this is like Joe Maida, who is like my guru, as mentioned, the format is a key part of the value of the book, right? A beautiful, engaging format. Someone said, I'm impressed by how this graphic novel format brings organizational transformation to life. People are truly appreciating the fact that these stories are coming in a very visual form. To the point that people started writing stuff like this. I've always wanted to become a better reader. My mind responds much better to better visuals. And then I started receiving DMs from people that I did not know at all, say, this is like a quote, and I'm not saying who that was because it's a DM. I don't know if this person is okay with it, but he said, this is the first business book I've managed to read from cover to cover in the past 10 years. And for me, this is like winning. For me, this is like amazing. Like it's reaching people that gave up to actually about reading, about business, about design in their career, simply because there was not something that was coming in a format that was fitting for them. And so I guess the real insight here is that stories, but especially well-crafted visuals, have the power to make the complex simple, to turn those abstracts and big grand ideas into something that is way more tangible. And they allow us to reach both the head and the heart of people that you wouldn't be able to reach with just plain text. And so I really believe that this is designer's superpower. And especially strategic design and service design, we really truly tend to forget that. I've seen so many presentations from design leaders or service designs that honestly they look ugly and they look dry and they look not really designerly, not really visual. And so my call for action here is really use this superpower, because it is a superpower. I do not forget that. Insight number 2. Throughout the process of writing this book, but also interviewing people, writing the book, but also talking about the book. I'm on a book tour right now. I've been in many different countries, in a lot of different settings, from corporates to universities to NGOs, role-playing some of the parts of the book, because of course, being this a graphic novel like this, you don't really read it because the text is very little. You have to role-play it. And so I engage the audience usually in that role-playing of the story. And by doing that, I really started sedimenting a new definition for design for myself that I've been finding very useful, and I found that some people around me found it useful too, which says design is the ability to generate alternative desirable futures and to make others believe in and own that very future. And that's where, so this is where I got throughout this process, and I'm really treasuring this definition because for the first time it's resonating with all of the things that I've been thinking about, the superpowers of design, that vision, that alternative desirable future, which I talk a lot about in the book, because the third part of the book is really about that, envisioning alternative futures, should, in my opinion, become the reason of being for service designers. That's everything they should strive for. Everything else should just serve their purpose. And the reason why the vision matters, because the ability to articulate the compelling vision, the grounded vision, the desirable vision in a way, and to visualize that in a way that others cannot necessarily do, sparks innovation, sparks alignment creating alignment for teams around one shared specific goal. And that's really, in my opinion, how you can shape your organization, or contribute in shaping your organization without losing your creative core. I do quite a lot of coaching for design professionals as well as leaders, and now I'm working a lot with next generation leaders, designers who are at the point of becoming director or just became director, so they are at a point where they're shifting. And one of the biggest fears everyone has across the board is the risk of losing the creative core, the risk of ending up in an Excel or having to manage all the people and losing connection with the craft. And I think this is the trick, like the ability of staying true to that vision allows those designers stepping into leadership positions to really remain true to the creative core. And then there's the last one, and this one is about leadership. And I would like to share, this is not mine, this is a definition from two amazing women that I absolutely love, Frances Frey and Morris. And they define leadership as making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact continues into your absence. And the reason why I love this definition so much, and I've been using it a lot in the last year, is that actually through this definition it's clear that anyone can be a leader. Like being a leader is not connected or associated to a role, to a job title. It's an attitude, it's a mindset, it's a way of showing up in the world and connecting to others. And most importantly, the one thing that this definition says is that leadership is really not about you. And I think we need a lot more of that. I think that as design leaders, we have the opportunity to show a bit more of this type of leadership that the world really needs and organizations desperately needs, that go beyond the ego and the self and embrace others, giving agency to others to really show up in the best way possible. And I would like to close with some reflections on the role of the design leader, because of course my book is titled Design Leadership Chronicles. So these are 9 stories of design leaders driving change in their organization. And I started by telling you why a graphic novel, why visuals. I continue talking about design and about leadership. And I would like to close with this idea of the design leader as having 4 roles. A lot of people talk about design leaders these days, especially in the era of AI. I think that there are really 4 roles that are super important for us to make sure we remember. The first one is the one of future translator. So being able to bridge today's reality with tomorrow's possibilities. And that's really what I want to highlight when I talk about envisioning alternative desirable futures. Facilitator of ownership, making sure that all of the people, the stakeholders, human and non-human around, feel ownership of the vision. Making sure the action happens, that there is momentum, because a lot of the stuff that in the past, especially in the services and realm, we're trying to create a struggle to gain momentum or to maintain momentum at least. So that is like a fundamental aspect of it. And then the last one, which for me is fundamental and goes back to the first insight that I shared, is guardian of beauty. So making sure that the solutions that we provide, transformations we enable, are important in the way they function and they're important in the way they feel. And so one of the key aspects of our work is really maintaining that good high level of design and quality throughout the process. And I couldn't highlight them more. I think we tend to forget about that. But beauty, I think, is what brought us to design in the very first place. At least for me, it was like that. And I'm really hoping that we're not forgetting that anymore. And that's it. Daniela, those are my 3. I was super Swiss, huh? 8 minutes.
As someone who is both Swiss and Italian, I know how much energy it needs for us to be on time, on point, but you were brilliant. Thank you so much for these 3 insights. And I believe there is much more in that than just 3 insights, and I'm sure people will.
It's fine. You asked for 3. I gave you 3.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. We will directly go to the first question. It's a question from Emmanuel Franier. He says, "Hi, Marzia. Great talk. Thank you so much. I love your point about how to align teams with shared goals, but it's not an easy matter. Do you have any advices on this?"
Yeah. So the framing that I shared is not any goal, right? It's a goal related to a specific vision that you are creating with them. And so, in my opinion, it's fundamental to position yourself as the center of that work. And no one, will ever ask you to do that. It's very rare. They will go to strategy, they will go to innovation, they will go to other people that on paper are more, better trained for that, I'm not sure. And the design leaders that I've found to really be able to step in and guide the type of work around the definition of what is the future for this organization are those that actually proactively decided it was their role. They were not asked, they just jumped in and made sure to have the right support to be able to do the type of work. And so when you then start doing it, and when you start engaging the right people in the process in the right way, then that becomes a way to define common goals for people to go after, right? But there is a thing that comes, if you want, as a consequence of the first. Like you first have to carve the space and carve your remit, if you like, to be able to do that. And that is a fundamental thing which I really don't see that often. So the three stories that I shared in the book are from about that. They are from these three amazing women who actually managed to, without being asked, to carve their space to actually show to their own organization what alternative futures are there for us, and in what way can we reutilize the capabilities, the current capabilities the organization has to contribute to that future.
Thank you so much for that. We have already many more questions, so I'm gonna jump directly to the next one from Teresa, and she's saying, "Great presentation and very important topic. What tips can you recommend for shortening, selecting what we want to say? A common problem is that we get so attached to our many research insights."
Test, apply service design to your own process and design. It's like meta, super meta. But the idea is that this is something that you master by trying and failing and succeeding and testing the way you talk about stuff, the amount of content that you share with friendlies. So it's what I call like friendlies, people inside the organization who are bought into your cause, they're friendly to you, they are open to actually be used as a sparring partner, they're not necessarily super high, but have access to high people, so they have an understanding of what a reaction from other side of the organization could be. And so I never go out with a story in an organization without having tested it at least 10 or 15 times. And the other thing is that you never got only one story, right? So out of whatever work you have done, you would probably have 4 or 5 different stories because they cater to very different audiences, right? So there will be the product folks that will be interested just on one type of story. Through the same data, the same outcomes, the same outputs that you got. And then probably the C-suite, we want to hear something else. So nailing the right types of stories and the right number of stories as well is fundamental. You do it through testing. There is no other way.
Testing. Love that one. We have another question coming up from Layli, who is asking, "Thank you, Marzia, for these insightful insights. I'm curious, has your approach to storytelling and visualization changed as you've taken on more leadership roles?"
Yeah. So, like, before becoming a director, so before having a kind of official leadership role, let's say, I was of the opinion that visualizing was more for junior designers, right? So I was like so busy to do the strategic things, and the visual of it was for someone junior. And that was so stupid. I was idiotic, now I can say it, because I think the visualization of the stuff that we were producing was the most important part. And not that a junior designer could not do it, they did some amazing stuff, but missing like the opportunity to be part of the process was a real miss out. I should have not done it like that. So the more I grew into leadership roles, the more I realized that actually the visualizing and the storytelling was the key essence of what we were doing. And so I kept it more and more closer to me. Not that I was doing it alone, obviously, but I made sure that I was always involved in the crafting of the story, in the crafting of the visuals, right? Like how can you communicate a very complex concept out of, I don't know, 7 months project in one visual that anyone can replicate on a napkin everywhere in the organization, right? That level of simplicity requires a lot of work and thinking. It's not something for less skilled designers, it's something for everyone, for skilled designers as well as those that need to learn, right? Everyone can contribute to it. And so you should be on top of it.
Thank you so much. Related to this, we have Shandy who asks, "Some people prefer visual while some other prefer text to process information. How do you balance it when you are delivering messages in different contexts like presentation and research reports?"
I usually ask to the people that are my key audience, how do you learn? That is one of the questions that I always ask. And usually in the first or second meeting, how do you learn? How do you access new information? I ask at the beginning, to make sure that throughout the project, I do share stuff in a way that they can consume it, because you don't want to just disappear and end up at the end of it with something that makes no sense to them, right? And so I asked how they consume information, how they feel more comfortable, and then try and understand what works. And probably you will find that there are patterns. There are probably like 2 or 3 types of formats that work. And so I usually try to combine those. And so maybe it's a very visual deck with a video that accompanies it. This is something that I very often do. And it was actually mentioned by someone else in one of these talks. But it could also be like icons, right? It could also be like I had a client at one point that just wanted to be sent emails no more than 3 lines. Anything that more than 3 lines was just not read. And so I crafted my skills of communicating everything in 3 lines. It's like a tweet.
So I love how you're adapting, and it's great to see how you're even adapting to this format, like the speed of the questions. You're very synthetic in your answer. It's really something that I deeply appreciate. And through that, we get to have even a few more questions in the
Totally
round.
very
So,
true.
hey, thank you so much. It's deeply appreciated. Layli comes back with another question for you. And she's asking, do you have any small daily habits that help you stay ready to spot or tell a good story or improve visual thinking as a service designer?
Yes, confidence. I wake up in the morning and I go in front of the mirror and I tell to myself how amazing I am, and then I'm doing great. And if that day I'm not doing great, I'm gonna tell myself that's okay. And so I keep pumping my self confidence, because I think good stories can only come from that level of self confidence. There is a very subtle difference between being cocky and being self confident. And this is something that I just do with myself at the mirror. I don't go around telling to people that I'm amazing. Just that. So that is one of the things that I do. And stories then become my everyday everything. So that is my work in everything I do. This presentation is a story to you folks in this shape, in this format. And coaching is another type of storytelling, right? Because you're trying to help someone see themselves from a different perspective through stories about themselves. Transformation is all about stories. Everything we do is about stories, right? And supporting visual. And but I think really the ability of being able to crafting good stories really starts from the stories that you tell to yourself.
Thank you so much. You have answered so many questions already, and it's slowly time for us to come to a close for today. But before we do that, I want to share 2 informations. The first one, which is not an information, but which is a little bit piece of gratitude, is obviously thank you so much to you for being here today, for having taken the time. I've invited you 1 year ago to this. We joked about that before, and it's really fun that 1 year ago we said in 1 year we'll meet for 30
I thought
minutes on
Danielle
a
is
Friday.
crazy.
And it happened, it worked. So I'm super thankful to you for making this happen. And for people who are curious about your work, your way of thinking, I want just to name again the fact that you have this book, Design Leadership Chronicles, published at Biz Publisher. People can get that one. And if you want to receive some more insights directly in your inbox or just in your browser, there is your blog, designmavericks.substack.com, that people can follow. One of the last posts was super interesting to me, especially. I would really recommend that you go and check those things. Thank you to all of you who have been joining. Just it's a bit of a tiny tradition. At the end, I like to share a few of the gratitude words that come from the people. We see that, as always, there is so much in here that people loved. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for your presence, your time, and for showing up. And thank you to all of you who shared questions, who were in the chat, and who also shared appreciation to Marzia. Thank you so much to
Bye.
everyone. Cheers. Bye bye.